right. Good morning, everyone. Before we jump into Mark chapter 14 as we finish it out, last week we started Mark 14. This week we'll finish 14. I just wanted to spend just a moment praying for our fellow Washingtonians in Spokane. I know that the weather looks nicer here, but there's still tens of thousands of people that either have lost their home or displaced. And so I just want to let's just lift them up. Let's let God do what He does. Heavenly Father, I just pray for our brothers and sisters in Spokane and in that area, Lord. God, we are so grateful that there have been no deaths, but we do know that a lot of people are now without homes. A lot of people are no longer allowed to be in their homes or for a while can't return. And so I just pray for them, God. I just pray for comfort. I pray for patience. I pray for resolution. And God, I just pray that maybe in some way you can come through in their life where they recognize that you have been in their life and have been taking care of them. And I just pray for that opportunity in Jesus' name. Amen. So as I was thinking about just today we're going to go over the betrayal of Jesus, essentially. And so he is going to be betrayed by his own disciples. He's betrayed by the people of Israel, his best friends. There's a lot of betrayal happening today, but a lot of it is based around the idea that their life is now falling apart. This ministry was going strong for 3.5 years, and then it just kind of falls apart, that they think. And it made me come up with a question in my head. And as I was thinking about Spokane, I have some friends that live in Spokane, and I'm not sure when they're going to get to go back to their homes yet. But what do you do when things fall apart? When your life doesn't seem to be going to plan? How do you react? What are some of the things that you do? Who are the people that you lean into? And it reminded me, because one of the people in Spokane, I went to college with her, and it reminded me of a story in college where a really good friend of mine got a parking ticket on campus. And the way it worked was they didn't have like police on campus. We had what was called public safety. And they could write tickets and do all that fun stuff. But it wasn't on your DMV record, so you really didn't have to pay it. And I only knew that loophole because I just didn't pay it one time and nothing happened. And so I didn't pay any of my parking tickets. But now you do. But anyways, and so he got a ticket and we just kind of, it was for something dumb. He was like that far into the red zone, just like his bumper was barely touching it. And so they gave him a ticket for that. And so we said, okay, well, I know what to do. We have to avenge you. And so I convinced 7 or 8 other people, other guys that were in my little dorm and apartment complex. And I said, we got to get even. We're going to get back public safety. And so we came up with this plan. So I came up with this plan. Now, we didn't do anything damaging. We didn't kidnap their families or anything. We decided that we were just going to just attack them with water balloons in the cover of night. And so I had set it up. There was 8 of us. 4 of us were going to be on the roof of the dorms, and we were going to launch these water balloons from a distance. And then I had 4 guys on the ground. That was my decoy. So if for whatever reason they pinpointed where those balloons were coming from and they started running towards us, these other 4 were going to do a surprise attack launch from their side, throwing off the scent, allowing us to escape. So that was the plan. Things are going great. So night comes. We're up at the top. There's 4 of us, and we're launching these balloons, and we're hitting their little golf carts. They had these little tiny golf carts that they drove around in, and we're hitting them, and they're just looking around like, what is happening? And they're getting so mad. Where are these water balloons coming from? And they cannot figure it out because 1, it's the cover of night, but 2, after every launch, we ducked, and so we'd get down low. So they could not figure out where it was coming from, and they were getting more and more angry. Eventually, they just decided to run in a particular direction, and it happened to be in our direction because I think they kind of figured, well, it seems like it's coming from here. And so they started running towards us, and we were ducked. They had no idea we were up there. So the second part of the plan needs to take effect. So my ground crew is now supposed to launch and start shooting water balloons and then throw them off. Well, my ground crew panicked, and they just took off running. They didn't even throw 1 balloon. They just took off running. So they go the other direction, but we're still okay because they don't know that we're up here. Let's just wait it out. And I said, guys, just wait it out. We're just going to duck right here. We'll be fine. And they're down at the bottom. We could see them, and they're looking around. Where do you think it's coming from? And one of the guys in my group, he starts having like a little mini panic attack. He says, my mom's going to kill me if I get caught. I'm out. And he stands up, and he starts to run. The problem is the dude was 6'8". So it's like King Kong running on top of the Empire State Building at this point. And as soon as he stands up and starts running, they immediately see, and they see, they're on the roof. So they start running up 4 flights of stairs to get to us, and he's taking his sweet time going down the fire escape thingy. So he gets out, he escapes, and just as we enter the fire escape to get out, public safety meets us, converges, and we're all caught at this point because they recognize us. And they said, "You guys are in so much trouble." And we said, "Okay." So that was like on a Friday night, Saturday morning, and Monday was when the dean of academic whatever was in the office, and so he calls us in. There's 3 of us that got caught. And he calls us in, and he says, "I think there was more of you, at least one more. How many was there?" And we all kept our stories kind of to the chest. He said, "It was just the 3 of us." And he says, "Okay, you guys are going to face the full weight of the punishment, just the 3 of you." And we said, "Okay." And they assigned us 30 hours each of community service, which I think I still owe that to the university to this day. But I don't think I ever fulfilled that 30 hours because I owed like 180. And so I'm pretty sure I still owe 175. But it's okay. I got my degree. It is what it is. But I remember that moment because, oh man, we had a good plan. It would have worked. It would have worked perfectly if either the ground crew had did what they were supposed to do or my one guy didn't stand up and run away, which he never did apologize. But if he didn't stand up and run away, we would have been fine. This great plan fell apart because everyone just ditched. Now, the good news is the 3 of us, we stuck together, and we kept together, and we were able to share in this burden. But today, we're going to look at Jesus' best friends running away when he needs them the most. So with that, we're going to start in verse 27, and we're just going to work our way through the end of this chapter. It says, "On the way, Jesus told them, 'All of you will desert me, for the scriptures say, God will strike the shepherd, and the shepherd will be scattered. But after I am raised from the dead, I will go ahead of you to Galilee and meet you there.'" So last week was the Passover meal where he shared with them, this is my body, this is my blood. So that was last week. They've just finished. They're leaving. They're singing together. They're heading towards the Mount of Olives to go pray. That's what Jesus liked to do. And as they walked, Jesus shares another piece of bad news. The previous moment, he says, "I'm going to die. One of you guys is going to betray me." Now he says, "All you hosers are going to betray me. You're going to ditch me. You're going to leave." Which happens to fulfill Zechariah chapter 13, verse 7. But they didn't know that. And then he drops this huge clue after this bombshell. He says, "After you guys leave me, okay, when that all goes down, meet me in Galilee and I'll come find you." So then Peter's response, he doesn't even listen to that. He says, "Even if everyone else deserts you, I never will." So bold Peter, "I would never, Jesus. There's no way. These other guys, they might, but not me." He throws his other friends under the bus a little bit. And the word desert here is also translated fall away or fall into a trap. Peter is so sure of himself that he would never fall into a trap that he boldly tells Jesus, "No way." And then Jesus says, "I tell you the truth, Peter," verse 30. "On this very night, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times that you even knew me." So Jesus is very specific. That should have been clue number 1 to Peter. He says, 3 times you're going to say you don't know me. Not only that, you're going to hear audible signals that you're going to deny me. And in that moment, Peter still didn't hear that. This very detailed warning, Peter didn't listen. What does Peter do instead? He doubles down. Verse 31, "No," he declared emphatically. "Even if I have to die with you, I will never deny you." And then all the others vowed the same. He gets more aggressive when Jesus pushes back. When he says, "You're going to do it," he says, "No stinking way. I will not do this." And all the other guys, yeah, me neither, Jesus. We're in. We're in to the end. He spoke so aggressively. That's the tone and the context right here. And this is probably why, or at least one of the reasons why, that later when he does deny Jesus, it just hurt that much more because he was, "Oh, not me, Jesus, never." And then he does it. But before we get there, a lot of stuff happens. Verse 32. They went to the olive grove called Gethsemane, and Jesus said, "Sit here while I go and pray." And he took Peter, James, and John with him, and he became troubled and distressed. So when Jesus is at his lowest physically and even mentally, what does he do? he goes and he prays. And he took his best friends with him. I think he's trying to share the burden with them. Because in the very next breath he says this, and he told them, my soul is crushed with grief to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. He went on a little further and fell to the ground, and he prayed that if it were possible, this awful hour awaiting him might pass. Verse 36, Abba, Father, he cried out, everything is possible for you. Please take this cup of suffering away from me, yet I want your will to be done, not mine. Now, right here, we can see that Jesus is feeling a closeness to God the Father, because he uses the word Abba. You use the word Abba when there's a closeness. It's like a daddy kind of way of speaking. So there's a closeness, but his soul is still being crushed because he understands the weight of what he's about to experience. The two things that he wanted when he felt this way was fellowship with God and fellowship with his friends. The first point that I want to make is you need to find people that will pray with and for you. To me, it's always been interesting that he chose these guys, these knuckleheads. And in this moment, he didn't ask them to do very much. He just said, stay up with me, pray with me. My heart is breaking. Please just pray with me. And they were just so emphatic, Jesus, we're with you. And they failed. What if they needed to fail right here? You ever wonder that? What if this moment was needed in their own life for one, to bring them down a notch of pride, like, no way, we're with you. To bring down that pride a little bit, and also to remember the power of community and support and what that means to share burdens with each other? I feel like every person in this circle learned from this moment because they write about very similar things in their letters to the church. About supporting each other, about finding community, about praying for each other. I believe this is a lesson that they learned, not in the moment, obviously, but in hindsight. And if we keep reading in verse 37, he says, he returned and found the disciples asleep. He said to Peter, Simon, are you asleep? Couldn't you watch with me even 1 hour? Did you catch what Jesus called Peter right there? He called him Simon. Previously, he'd been using Peter, which was the name that he gave him, Cephas, the rock. It's his new name. You're a new person. You're a follower. You are now the rock. It's his wrestling name. But he calls him by Simon, which is his old name, his fisherman name, his pre-Jesus name. Old Peter fell asleep. New Peter needs to be ready. And again, in this moment, I feel like Jesus kind of middle named him a little bit. You know, when you were a kid and you got in trouble and your mom would middle name you, you knew you were in big trouble. It wasn't just, James, come here. It was like James and your full name, and you're just, whoa, I'm busted. It was kind of one of those moments. And again, Peter learns from it because he writes about this later, about what it means to be diligent and keep watch. And then in verse 38, Jesus keeps talking, keep watch and pray so that you will not give in to temptation, for the spirit is willing, but the body is weak. Verse 39, then Jesus left them again and prayed the same prayers before. And when he returned to them again, he found them sleeping, for they couldn't keep their eyes open. And they didn't know what to say, which is funny. They keep falling asleep. And then 41, but then he returned to them a third time, and they're asleep again. Go ahead and sleep. Have your rest, but no, never mind. The time has come. The Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Man, these guys were so adamant. We're going to fight for you. We're going to die for you, Jesus. No way. We're with you. We're with you. Oh, we're so tired. And they fall asleep. 3 times. 3 times. Granted, it's the middle of the night. I get it. But 3 times Jesus said, just stay up and pray. Keep watch. And they couldn't do it. So then in 42, up, let's be going. Look, my betrayer is here. 43, and immediately, even as Jesus said this, Judas, one of the 12 disciples, arrived with a crowd of men armed with swords and clubs. They had been sent by the leading priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders. The traitor Judas had given them a prearranged signal. You will know which one to arrest when I greet him with a kiss. Then you can take him away under guard. And as soon as they arrived, Judas walked up to Jesus. Rabbi, he exclaimed, and gave him a kiss. It is now full-fledged We're in it. There's no turning back. Jesus is being handed over to be killed. Judas is there with a mob because he can't do it himself. But you ever wonder why he kissed Jesus? Do you ever wonder that? I mean, he could have easily just pointed and said, that guy right there, he did it. That's Jesus. He could have. He could have walked up to him, tapped him on the shoulder. There are so many things that he could have done. Why come up to someone to kiss them? Because in that time, when you came up to a teacher or someone that had authority, you would give them a kiss as a sign of respect. So in this moment, it makes sense that he probably did it not because he respected Jesus. We know he didn't respect Jesus because he turned him in. But it was almost a sarcastic tone, like, I don't respect you, Jesus, so I'm going to mock you in this moment. I don't respect you, but I'm going to kiss you anyways. Perhaps he was doing it for crowd validation because he's got all these guys behind him. Go get him, Judas. And that crowd mentality probably took over a little bit. But in that moment, Judas probably felt good about himself that he did this thing. And then we read in verse 46, and then the others grabbed Jesus and arrested him. But one of the men with Jesus pulled out his sword and struck the high priest's slave, slashing off his ear. Then Jesus asked them, am I some dangerous revolutionary that you have come with swords and clubs to arrest me? Why didn't you arrest me in the temple? I was there among you teaching every day. But these things are happening to fulfill what the scriptures say about me. Verse 50, then all his disciples deserted him and ran away. So we know from the other gospels who the person was that sliced the ear. It was Peter. Peter, his name was likely omitted in the book of Mark because Mark was written when he was still alive. So they're probably protecting his identity so that he didn't get arrested for doing this thing. Because you just can't go around lopping people's ears off. That's just frowned upon. Even today, don't do that, right? But here's this fisherman. He's swinging wildly. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's not a soldier. He takes a sword out and he just hacks at this guy and he cuts off his ear. Not only is it a person, but it's the high priest's assistant. So he's a scribe. He's like a big deal. So now Peter's in big trouble. But Jesus bails him out. Again, in the other Gospels, we find that Jesus actually heals him. He touches him and he heals his ear. So now this dangerous assault is no longer there. It's gone because his ear's back. It's very easy to think and to realize that Peter could have been number 4 on that hill next to Jesus, crucified along with him. But at this point, now all the disciples have taken off. They don't know what to do, so they run away. The second point I want to make is that doubt often begins in emotional moments. Unfortunately, doubt is a big human emotion. We all feel doubt at various times in our life, in various situations. We'll feel doubt in our friendships, in our jobs, our purpose, our belief in God. It's normal to a degree. And sometimes we feel the most doubt when we're going through the storms, and sometimes we might feel doubt when there's nothing wrong, where everything seems to be fine. You have your health, your job's going great, you've got friends, and you still have those moments of, man, I don't know about this. Interesting thing to know about me is that I have found that my biggest moments of doubt, for me personally, as your pastor, is whenever we have a big spiritual win. Whether it's Easter or Christmas Eve or people are coming to Christ or baptisms or whatever it is, I don't know what it is, but the next day I have the most doubt. The enemy is ready to attack me. All the disturbing or insecure things that I feel about myself, they just start to enter into the chat and it just becomes bigger and bigger. I don't know why. Another fun fact, I always get sick after Easter and Christmas, except for this year. This is the first year in 10 years that I did not get sick after Easter. I'm not exaggerating. 9 straight years, as soon as Easter Sunday is done, Easter Monday, I am sick. It's that letdown, you know? Maybe this year I was just super hopped up on vitamin C. I don't know. I ate a lot of vitamin C. So it's probably what it is. But whatever it is, I escaped it this year. I still have Christmas Eve to look forward to. But it happens. But I get to a point where I start to expect this now. Whenever we have a spiritual win, I just know the next day I'm going to be either super grumpy or I'm going to doubt or I'm just going to be in a weird mood. It's just going to happen. And so I start to expect it. And when I expect it, I'm ready for it. It's almost like you're tensing up before you remember when Grandpa used to say, "Here, punch me in the stomach." It's kind of like that. Or I just tense up and I'm almost ready for it, and then it doesn't quite hit as hard. Now, before we kind of jump back into Jesus' arrest, there's 2 verses in this section that just seemed out of place. So let's read those right here. One young man following behind was clothed only in a long linen shirt. When the mob tried to grab him, he slipped out of his shirt and ran away naked. Doesn't this seem like such a random part of the Bible? He's been arrested. The mob is there. His disciples flee. And now we're talking about some random naked kid running around who slipped out of his PJs. Why is this included in the Bible? It's not random. This is actually fun Bible info. So now again, this isn't 100% proven, but most likely, most scholars agree that this young man is the author of this book, that it's Mark. Because he would have been around the right age, and most theologians feel and agree that the Last Supper took place in Mark's family home. So Mark would have been in the area. He's already in his PJs because it's nighttime. And after Jesus left, he probably just tagged along. So what we get here is we get an introduction into Mark, the naked disciple. That's my name for him. No one else said that. But we get an introduction to who this guy is, which is why those 2 verses were only included in this book. So just fun Bible stuff. Verse 53. Then he took Jesus... I lost my spot. To the high priest's home, where the leading priests, the elders, and the teachers of religious law had gathered. Meanwhile, Peter followed the entire. Good grief, reading's hard. Meanwhile, Peter followed him at a distance and went right into the high priest's courtyard, where he sat with the guards, warming himself by the fire. So Peter, though deserting him, didn't go very far. In fact, his hiding spot was probably the worst hiding spot you can pick. He's going to go stand by the fire so that his face is lit up. You can't really hide when you're standing in front of light. But again, we know that Peter didn't always think things through. Verse 55, inside, the leading priests and the entire high council were trying to find evidence against Jesus so they could put him to death, but they couldn't find any. Many false witnesses spoke against him, but they contradicted each other. Finally, some men stood up and gave this testimony. We've heard him say, "I will destroy this temple made with human hands, and in 3 days I will build another made without human hands." But even then, they didn't get their story straight. So there's a lot happening, a lot of back and forth. A lot of people are coming up saying, Jesus did this, and then someone else will stand up and say, he did this, but that would contradict what the previous person said. And the hope was that they can find something that condemns him to die, but they can't get anything. And they are getting frustrated. And here's how I know they're getting frustrated. Verse 60. Then the high priest stood up before all the others and asked Jesus, "Well, aren't you going to answer these charges? What do you have to say for yourself?" But Jesus was silent and made no reply. Then the high priest asked him, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?" How does Jesus respond to all these accusations? Silence. That really frustrated the high priest. He's looking for a conviction. In those times when the high priest walked into the room, they would command the attention of the room, and then what he would do is he would go to his spot and he would sit down, and after he sat down, everyone else would sit down, and that's how they knew, let's get going. So he would have been sitting with all the other priests and all the other teachers of the religious law, and they're trying to get him convicted. Nothing's working. He is visibly upset, so he stands up. That is the visible cue that he is mad. "Oh, I cannot believe this is not working." And he's frustrated and he's angry, and he goes right to Jesus and he gets in his face. "Do you have an answer?" And Jesus says, "Nothing." Third point, God's silence is not God's absence. Why was Jesus silent? We'll get to that. But a week and a half ago, I went on a solitude and silence retreat. I've never done one before, so that was a new experience for me. But all my family were at youth camp. I have all 4 kids were in youth camp this year, so my wife was a counselor, and I had a week to myself. And so I thought, I'm going to give this week to the Lord. God, I'm going to just go up into the mountains, and I'm going to let you speak. I'm going to bring my Bible. I'm going to bring my journal. I'll bring some books. I'm just going to spend time and let you speak, Lord. I pray for a lot of different things in the church. I'm waiting for God to answer a lot of different things in the church. So I thought this is a great chance. So what I did was when I got there, I was silent for 24 straight hours. No talking for 24 straight hours. Guys, that's harder than you think. Even if you're by yourself, I didn't realize how much I talk to myself. Just little things where you drop something and you just say, uh-oh. Or you stub your toe. You don't usually stub your toe and then you're silent and walk away, right? You stub your toe and you say, dang it, or you throw something or you go, or whatever. All of those things. I audibly said, where's my glasses? Who am I talking to? But that's what I was doing. It was so hard to do that. Not only that, maybe you're more spiritual than I am, but man, I couldn't just pray and read my Bible for 14 hours. I couldn't do it. I was getting bored. I would pray for 30 minutes and then I would read and then I'd do laps around the room. I had this studio little room up in the mountains and I'm just walking around in circles looking at the wall. Oh, look, a tree. Cool. Man, I was getting so bored. Y'all, I was getting so bored. I did a puzzle. Yeah. A 300-piece puzzle all by myself. And maybe you're a puzzle person and you love those. I'm not bagging on you. That's God's calling in your life. It is not my calling in my life. I do not do puzzles. They frustrate me more than anything because they all look like they fit. And so here I am staring at all these little cardboard shapes that fit together, that create an image. And I'm doing a puzzle because I was so bored. And not only that, I rationed my puzzle. I didn't finish it all in one sitting because I knew I was there for 3 days. So I couldn't finish the puzzle the first day because what am I going to do the second and third day? So I just did a little bit and then I'd come back and I'd do a little bit and do some more laps, stare at some more trees, cool, more rocks. I would pray and I would do all of those things. And I would just make myself available. You guys, I prayed a lot, more than I've probably prayed in any 3-day stretch of my life. I woke up at 3 a.m. because I've read that is a spiritual hour to pray. 3 days of prayer and silence. And you know what I heard from God? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Man, that frustrated me. Oh man, God, I could have heard nothing at home. I could have been at home much less bored. Maybe I still do a puzzle, I don't know. But I make all this effort. I'm up in the mountains. Where's my burning bush, Lord? And I was frustrated. And I was stewing a little bit. On the last day, I'm finishing my puzzle. Because as much as I'm not a puzzle person, I have to get things done person. So I'm finishing the puzzle and I'm just sitting there, And I had this thought. As I'm completing this thing, this thought popped into my head. Who am I to tell God to speak? What authority do I have that I can tell the Creator, speak? I don't have that. If he wants to be silent, he can. He's God. If he wants to speak, he can. He's God. He is not at my beck and call. He is the Lord. He is God. He is the one that created me. He will speak when he's ready. And I thought about that as I was going through and packing up. Just because God is silent, it doesn't mean that he's absent. So in this moment, Jesus is silent. Then the high priest does something illegal. He asks him a question that if he answered it would condemn him. You weren't supposed to do that. And to say that you were on the equal footing of God, that was bad. That was blaspheme. That was punishable by death. And he asks him that question, are you the Messiah? And here's Jesus' response. He finally speaks, I am. And you will see the Son of Man seated in place of power at God's right hand and coming on the clouds of heaven. Jesus finally speaks. Why now? Why answer this question? You know that this is a condemning question. Are you the Messiah? And he says, I am, which was another word for God. I am, I was, I am. And he does this. Why? Because for the first time, everyone gets to hear the answer. There is no other recording. There's only one other time that Jesus says plainly, I am the Messiah, and that was to the woman at the well. He never said it to his disciples. He would allude to it. Who do you say that I am? He would say stuff like that, but he never full on said, I am the Messiah, until this moment for everyone to hear. He spoke because the right question was answered, or was asked. And in this moment, two things happened. One, he showed his courage because he knew his answer meant death. His silence could have prolonged his life because they had nothing to convict him on. But he knew his assignment. He came to die for us. And he did it with confidence, which is the second thing. He knew the ultimate triumph. His death would lead to yours and my salvation, to the people in their room that believe their salvation. So he walked forward with confidence. But the high priest didn't like that. Verse 63, then the high priest tore his clothing to show his horror and said, why do we need other witnesses? You have heard his blasphemy. What is your verdict? Guilty, they all cried. He deserves to die. Then some of them began to spit on him, and they blindfolded him and beat him with their fists. Prophesy to us, they jeered, and the guards slapped him and took him away. They had everything they needed to convict him, not to execute him, because that's Roman law, but enough to convict. And they had enough to get the crowd on their side, which is all they needed. Because once you get the crowd, they knew the pressure on politics from the crowd was so big that they would say yes. And so they had him. But then what's Peter doing through all of this? Verse 66, meanwhile, Peter was in the courtyard below. One of the servant girls who worked for the high priest came by and noticed Peter warming himself at the fire. And she looked at him closely and said, you were one of those with Jesus of Nazareth. But Peter denied it. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. And he went out into the entryway. Just then a rooster crowed. Audible number one. When the servant girl saw him standing there, she began telling the others, this man is definitely one of them. But Peter denied it again. A little later, some of the other bystanders confronted Peter and said, you must be one of them because you are Galilean. Peter swore, a curse on me if I'm lying. I don't know this man you're talking about. And immediately the rooster crowed a second time. Suddenly Jesus' words flashed through Peter's mind. Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times that you even know me. And he broke down and wept. This is probably one of the most heartbreaking moments in the Bible. This guy so in control, so adamant. I would never leave you, Jesus. I would never deny you. I would never forsake you. I would never do any of these things. And he does it, his best friend, and he realizes it instantly. He realizes what he did. He messes up. But man, I can relate to Peter. Lord, I'm all in, and then I doubt so hard that I wonder if I ever believed. The good news is with Peter and with us, a setback doesn't have to be the end of your story. Do you know what a setback does to a story? It makes it better. When the main character overcomes that obstacle and carries on, it becomes motivating. My family and I, we watched The Odyssey last week. I read it in high school. One of my kids, he was in high school now, he's reading it this year, and so we decided we were going to see it together. My wife's been reading it, and so we went and saw it. Really good movie. If you've never read The Odyssey or any of that stuff, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it revolves around a guy named Odysseus, and he is a general, and he goes to war, and he's at war for 10 years, so he's away from his family for 10 years. At the end of the war, he's now on another journey home, and it takes him 10 years to get home. So he's gone for 20 years. Now, the 10 years that it took him to get home was all his fault. And that was the problem. One obstacle after another. He just kept making a terrible decision, usually driven by pride. And he would shake his fists at the gods, and they would constantly put obstacle after obstacle in his way, to the point where it just you just keep reading, and it just you keep wondering, is he going to make it? Is he going to make it? One obstacle, another. Is he going to make it past this? And then I'm not going to spoil it, but then you get to the climactic ending, and you get to the moment where you're just like, yes. Oh. His journey was long because of his actions and his pride. One mistake after another. I don't know how many times I've let something I've done or said become the weight around my legs that keep me from following God with all of me. And God is always constantly saying, well, if you can't move, remove what entangles you. Because the reality is the problem just doesn't go away, right? It doesn't. So how do we do that? How do we remove what entangles us? I think we go back to what Jesus did when he was at his lowest. The first thing is find fellowship with God. That's what Jesus did. Spend time praying. Spend time praying while driving. Pray while showering. Pray in the morning. Pray in the noon. Pray in the night. Go on a prayer walk. Pray with others. Talk it out with God. These are going to be moments where you allow God to speak. And he may be silent. You're right. He might be silent. It doesn't mean he's absent. He might just be waiting for the right time to answer or for the right question to be asked. The second thing is find fellowship with others. That's what Jesus did. There's power in the help of others when they are praying with you, when they're praying for you, when they just show up to help, when they just show up to be in your presence and just to be with you. When they bring the right words of encouragement or motivation, or they don't bring any words or encouragement, they're just in your presence. It's people in our lives that God will use to encourage and comfort us. And in turn, maybe God will use you to encourage and comfort someone else. Today, as we close, do you find yourself drifting from God? There's a really cool scene in the Odyssey where he and his entire crew are just floating in the water. There's no wind. They are out of food. They're out of water. They don't know what to do next. And they're desperate. And as they're floating, one of them screams out, "I see land." And they see land in the horizon. They were saved at the last minute. I think about how God will sometimes let us drift. And I think he's just waiting for us to look, to see the land in front of us, to see the opportunity in front of us, to spend time with him, to spend time with people that build you up, and then allow them to shape and guide your heart and bring you back into a connection with God. So with that, let's pray for every opportunity that God will use to do that in our lives. Heavenly Father, we just pray in this moment, God, I pray that we give you the weight that entangles us. I pray, Father, if we are drifting, that we get back to the basics where we find fellowship with you and we find fellowship with others. Help us, Lord, to lean on you fully. God, I pray that we can find inspiration, patience, guidance, and ultimately, Father, obedience. Lord, help us to see your next step for us. In Jesus' name, amen.